Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got Jamie Truman here and coming out of Maryland, and she's co-founder of Truman Charities. She's also the host of the Truman Charities podcast. She's also got a book out there, Vanishing Fathers, The Ripple Effect of Tomorrow's Generation. I'm really happy to have her on for this business entrepreneurship podcast and spread good vibes to the community. Jamie, welcome.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, briefly introduce yourself, and I'm really excited to delve into the questions.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like you mentioned, I've been the co-founder of Truman Charities for about 15 years now, and started the podcast in 2021 and just debuted my book in March, which is great because all the proceeds go to charity, and we've raised about $80,000 for that so far. So that's great.
Wonderful. And so I have a question for you. Because your book is Vanishing Fathers, and then you've got a charity and podcast. How does all of this interrelate together?
So, try to make the story somewhat short here. So we had began Truman Charities, as I mentioned, 15 years ago. It's a 100% volunteer-based organization. And we have 3 annual events per year that we host. We have a Halloween, a derby, and then like a family fun event each year. And so there's only so many organizations that we could help throughout the year. And so in 2021, I decided to start the podcast where I would talk to other nonprofit founders and thought leaders in the community that are making a difference so we could try to help market those organizations as well. And through talking to, I think I've spoken to maybe like 130, 140 people at this point, plus the people over the 15 years that we have had hosted events for. And I noticed that there was this underlying cause that nobody was really talking about when it came to youth substance abuse and women being exploited and homelessness and all of these factors.
Mm.
And it was the lack of father involvement in a child's life during their upbringing. So then I decided to write Vanishing Fathers, where I interview people from all different backgrounds to get their story about how they grew up with either a father that had passed or a father that was not involved within their lives, either through they just were never there or they had substance abuse issues, and how they were able to overcome that. And then the majority of the people that I had interviewed, the individuals I interviewed were men.
Mhm.
And it was great seeing how they were able to overcome that and become like great leaders in the community and great fathers and husbands themselves.
And so when you talk about lack of father figures and its correlation with the societal problems, is that both son and daughter, or is it more more effect on the male versus the daughter?
No, I looked at both men or young girls and young women, and not having a father had a great impact with both girls and boys.
Mhm. And a kind of follow-up question is, why is it vanishing fathers? Because I lost my mom early, and that had its effects. Is there a difference between losing a father versus a mother? Just for my own curiosity.
There's impacts on both. And what I wanted to do was really hone it in on the impact of a father when they're not around, because that is what we're seeing in society. There's an overwhelming amount of men that are missing within the family unit opposed to women.
Interesting. Yeah, I have some further follow-up questions, but I want to talk about, because you're really doing great work, and
Thanks.
you talk about innovation and fundraising, and what innovative fundraising strategies have you found most effective with Truman Charities?
It's great because when we first started our organization, it started with just a really small event at our house and cookout, put money in a bowl kind of thing.
Mhm.
And we went from raising around each event $8,000 to $10,000 per event to now our largest event last year, we raised $117,000. Now, this is all based on volunteer work. So what we realized that from the beginning until when I started to see that our fundraising started to become very successful was when we decided that we were going to go out and look for board members that in each person and delegate, specific parts of each event towards them. For instance, one of our board members owns a marketing company, Fast Agency. And so we delegate all of that to her. So I think what the main thing that we learned to really become successful was being able to delegate and releasing some of that, a lot of the work to other people because not everybody's great at everything, right? So I do social media, I do the podcast, but if it were me being in the back end, the admin, that is not what I'm very good at. So being able to find different individuals that are experts in certain areas and putting them together onto a team like works wonders.
Yeah. And running a nonprofit is not an easy task. So you got volunteer engagement, you got event management tips, you have challenges. So do you talk about a lot of volunteers? How do you keep volunteers motivated and engaged in 100% volunteer based organization?
The great thing is we make it fun. As I said, there are 3 annual events. We have a huge Halloween party, which people are so ecstatic about. Derby party, which is always a lot of fun. The same way we do it the week before the actual derby. And then we have a family fun event where you can invite your kids and things like that. And what we do is so I have a 21-year-old stepson, and then I have 2 sons myself, 7 and 4 years old.
Hmm.
And so the 21-year-old, we've been doing this with him since he was like 6. And what we do, we are involving, and also with our other board members, they're involving their family members. So the great thing is that, with our stepson, SSL hours can be used to help volunteer for all of these different events. And so they're getting these hours, but they're also starting to get really involved within this organization too. So my stepson is very much involved within the organization too. And some of his friends that grew up helping us out at these events and getting those SSL hours now actually just come to be involved within the event. And so we're starting to do that now with my 7-year-old too.
Interesting. Yeah, I know because I've always like volunteering is like one of those core values, and it's always interesting to see how organizations keep volunteers engaged. They have to be raving fans for them to share their time to help in organizations. Moving on to event management, and what are key lessons learned from hosting large scale fundraising events? And you got to engage the community, and you also have to raise money and meet your financial goals. So, what are some key lessons or things to look out for?
So I'll tell you a quick story of what we did that was not a good idea and that we learned from. But so we used to have the events at our house, and they started to get very large. So then 150 people coming in and out of your house, it's a lot of wear and tear on your house. So we had moved it, but there's a couple of things. First, when we were first started, we tried to, for example, we were doing an event with an organization called Kind. So it's Kids in Need Distributors. And they do after school, for the kids that are on the free and reduced lunch program, they will give food to those children for the weekends, for spring break, for summer break, all of that. So we're raising money for them. And we thought, at first we tried to like theme the food and make it fun.
Mhm.
And so we thought we'll do something where it's going to be themed to kids, school buses, things like that. And we clearly didn't think it through. And everything was like oven based, or the stove had to be on, and then the ovens had to be on. Got our house up like at least 10 degrees, 15 degrees hotter than it usually is. People were in like sweating. And it was so bad. And I was like looking around, I was like, Jerry, this is such a bad idea. So I think keeping it like, I know the words like stupid is probably bad, but like simple, stupid. So so what we do now is we really wanted to make this work so all of our board members are business owners themselves. And we're like, if this has to be successful, we have to run this like a business too. Everything has to be very simple and put together. And so now we do the exact same food all of the time. We know what works. We keep it simple. And then also the one great thing that we did is we're like, okay, it's not sustainable to have it at our house. We want to have it at a venue. Some of the board members were thinking, why don't we go around to different venues? And we thought about it and we're like, no, keep it simple. And then so you can have this one venue that knows that you're going to be coming in 2 to 3 times a year for large events. They're going to be more inclined to help you, more inclined to give you a deal on the food. We get the space for free because we're bringing in all of these people to their establishment, and we're building a great relationship with them. And there's people that have come up and asked me, what can I do if I'm on a small budget and I want to do an event, or I want to do some sort of fundraiser? What can I do? And there's a great way to go into a venue and say, hey, would you like to be a sponsor? Meaning, what we'll do is if you can give us the space, I can guarantee you, say, 50 people are going to be coming this evening. And we're also going to do a social media campaign for you. You're going to be in our newsletters. We'll put you on our website. And most venues are very open to those type of like negotiations when it comes to if you're a sponsor, we'll get this for a smaller amount or for free. So I think keeping it very like simple and structured is the best way. So it ends up being kind of turnkey.
Yeah. Because you talked about this story that, in your learnings, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in running a nonprofit, and how do you address them? How do you overcome them? And then also talk about success stories and your impact on the community.
So what we ended up seeing through the first maybe 5 to 6 years within the organization is that, and I see this with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of just organizations in general, is that you're getting the same people coming over and over. So how do you keep it new and fresh and get new people in the community involved and excited about whatever it is that you're doing? So we used to do our events where there was no charge and you registered and you came. Then we thought, how can we get new people here plus help small business owners too? So now what we do is small sponsorship. So for instance, say that you wanted to come and you'll say, okay, I'll do $1,000 sponsor. So now as you of a small business, you will then get 8 different tickets. So then you can bring your best clients, good friends of yours, some of your employees as a thank you. And that's a great way for you to be able to help your own business and for us to get more people in the community to learn about what we're doing. And then as soon as they come to the event, then they really like it and they have a great time and are more inclined to come back themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really evident in Truman's Charities measured impact. There's a couple further questions. I know we have around 10 minutes remaining. And what is your advice for nonprofits? Somebody's listening to this and they want to start their own charity based on your experiences. How do they get started? Why not just volunteer? Why start a nonprofit?
So, talking to people that have started nonprofits, there is usually, unfortunately, some sort of tragedy that ends up being a good force. It ends up being something that ends up being great for the community, but it ends up being something that is tragic to them. They have lost somebody that they love, etc. Someone wants to start a nonprofit. They're typically very passionate about the cause that they are wanting to help. So my advice, and I do a lot of these on my podcast. I do solo ones because I was getting so many questions coming into me. So solos once a month and just answer Q&As. And a lot of people will talk about, I want to try maybe a golf tournament, or I want to do some sort of big gala or something like that. And I want to start the 501(c)(3) and they want to do all of this stuff right away. And my advice to you is slow down. Do something small first. Why don't you try to do a small event? And then at that point, you don't have a 501(c)(3), find an organization that is doing similar to the cause that say for something that you would like to do. So for instance, my husband started Truman Charities because his grandfather passed away from leukemia and one of his good friends was in remission from leukemia. So he decided to have an event for her to raise money for the night walk, which was in Rockville here, Maryland. And then after that, he thought this is a really great way to bring the community together and for people to learn about different nonprofits that are around here that a lot of people wouldn't know about if they didn't come to the event. I think that first, do something very small, find a charity that is connected to your cause and raise money for them because it is a lot of work. And you want to make sure that you are ready to undertake that because maybe what you're going to decide to do is maybe I won't do the 501(c)(3. Maybe I'll just have an annual event once a year for this other particular charity. But if that's something that you want to do, you'll understand after the first time that you do it how much time and how much effort that this is going to take. And so then you have a better understanding. Also, a lot of people have these great ideas, and golf tournaments are great. They are also the hardest to do, most time consuming. They are very difficult to do with the amount of manpower that you need, the amount of time that is involved. And so that's something that you really need to think about. And you definitely have to have a large amount of board members or people that are on your, that are involved within your organization that are huge like supporters and love golf. It is a very difficult to do. Really think about it. Take it simple first.
Yeah. And what future goals, like you obviously accomplished a lot of success with Truman Charities. What future goals do you have in the future? How do you plan to achieve them? What are you looking at?
So to date, which I'm very happy about, that we've been able to raise over $2 million for local charities in the area. And what we see in our future is just continuing to do these events, bringing more people, more awareness, which has been really great with integrating the podcast in. So then I'm getting a broader reach of people
Mm.
and inviting new people in to be able, we're an avenue for people to be able to get connected within their community and find a cause that they're really passionate about. And we do see this as something that is passed down generationally. As I said, my stepson is very much involved. Other board members, their family members are very much involved. The family fun event was hosted by my 7-year-old and some of his other teammates that did the kids triathlon for that one. So him and his buddies take over that. And it's really wonderful to see generationally, like the kids getting involved and starting to take a bigger role within the organization.
Excellent. And a final question, how do you, because a lot of the audience, they want to achieve success in their careers, but they also want to have family and relational success, marriage success. So how do you balance all of these demanding roles and achieve this sort of work life balance?
Yeah, that's a tough one, I think, for everyone. But I do think I can at least, all I can say is for myself and my husband, is we have very defined roles on who is doing this versus who is doing that. So there is no confusion on what your particular role is in a certain situation. For instance, my husband, he's in finance, he works long hours. So when it comes to the day-to-day things with the children of all the drop-offs and the this and all that, that is what I take. So it just, I think, and what I've seen this with a lot of my other friends that are very successful within their own businesses too,
Mm.
is that their husbands, and then there is those kind of definitive roles, because when it does get where you don't exactly know who's supposed to be doing what, then that can cause a lot of confusion.
Yeah. How can people find out more about you and learn more about you and check out your work?
Sure. So you can follow us. Well, you can go to trumancharities.com, sign up for our newsletter, find out about all of our upcoming events. My podcast, you can find it anywhere, Truman Charities Podcast, and then social, Facebook, Truman Charities, Instagram, Jamie_Truman Charities, and LinkedIn, just Jamie Truman.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much for coming on and elaborating and shedding light on what you do, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, thank you. You too. I love your podcast.
Thank you.
Mhm.